I always find that working with non-vegans, you can always sneak in a few recipes and things, because I find that the best way to convert somebody, part of this revolution, is through food, because people love delicious food.
Super, super, super excited to be here today. It's kind of a low-key day, as you can tell by looking at the screen. We are really excited to have Heather Zeitzwolfe here today, who is just an amazing, amazing vegan. She's a business owner, she's an accountant, and she's got a lot going on in the world. But we're going to start with, how are you, Heather?
I'm doing great. I've got my RuPaul mug here with some coffee with some soy milk in it. It's all organic and fair trade. So, I'm representing.
Okay, so RuPaul, now, does it have what's on there? Is there a lot of makeup on there? Is there, what?
It's just
All
RuPaul.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We love RuPaul. So, okay. And I want to say hello to my co-host, Velyn Hawkins. How are you, Velyn?
Hello, Kathleen. I'm just excellent today. Thank you. And hi, Heather. Welcome. So glad you're with us today.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. I mean, anything that's got like vegan and revolution in the title. Oh man, I'm there. Yes, let's start this revolution.
Okay, we are going to start a revolution because the time has arrived. We don't have time to wait anymore. Things are changing in the world and things are on a decline, and we're on the upswing of making a difference. So Heather, let's start with your vegan story. When did you go vegan? Do you identify as vegan, plant-based? What's the deal there?
Yeah, plant-based, I think that's that cushy little way of introducing veganism to people. And you know what I've discovered? That things that are labeled plant-based aren't always vegan. So I definitely don't think of myself as plant-based. I definitely think of myself as vegan, because not only is it a diet, but it's also a lifestyle and my ethics. It's all about compassion. So animals first. I first started out as someone that went into veganism for dietary reasons. Like a lot of people dip their toe into it. And my husband and I, we were like, we want to get healthy, lose some weight. And I've always flirted around with vegetarianism over the years, and that was not foreign to me at all. But going vegan, then you're like, okay, well, you got to give up cheese. Well, my husband was a big cheesehead. I was lactose intolerant for years, so I didn't care about that. So we gave up, eggs and cheese one week, and then we gave up, we didn't really eat four-legged animals anyway, so that was okay. And then chicken, and then the last one was fish. And I grew up in a family where my father had a fish market when I was growing up, so seafood was always something that I was used to eating. So that was probably like the thing, like, oh, okay, how's this gonna fly? But we went into it, and suddenly I started feeling better. Here I had always had gut issues, and I started feeling more alert, more alive. And then we went to San Francisco, and I went to a vegan restaurant, and I saw some vegan leaflets, and I started looking through them and seeing all the atrocities of factory farming, which I was completely aware of back when I was a meat eater. And even like when I was in college, I did projects. I was an advertising student. I did stuff for like PETA was some of my projects that I did. And so I knew about all that stuff, but yet I still ate meat. But it wasn't until I got all that meat out of my system that I had a new set of eyes to look at these leaflets. And what I saw was horrifying. And I thought, I could never go back. Like, this was probably just going to be a temporary dietary thing that we were going to do. But after seeing that, it really solidified the importance of going vegan. So it's not just for me and my diet, but it's also for the animals and the planet. So it's a much bigger picture than just me and my health. I'm impacting so much more through that.
Oh, absolutely. And what year was that, Heather?
That was probably about, I want to say it was probably about 17, 18 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
I'd have to go
Okay.
back and look at the calendar. But then I had always been afraid of cats. And I was, I liked animals okay, but they were like not anything that I was just like eager to have around. And my husband was obsessed with cats and he was like, I want to get a cat. And I'm like, okay. And this is after we went vegan. And I was not happy about having a cat in the house, and I thought like, okay, he's gonna like suck the life out of me, like all these things that he's gonna scratch me. And anyways, I fell in love with this cat, became a crazy cat lady, and I swear now whenever I look in the eyes of my cat, I see the eyes of all the other animals, and I think, how could anybody eat an animal? And so if you are out there and you are not vegan yet, but you own a cat or a dog and you say, I'm an animal lover, I love
Mhm.
animals, think about what else is on your plate. And if those things have eyes and a mom, then think about what do you think is really the difference, and why are you okay with eating one animal and not the other? So
I love that. I love that because, and I think when we cross that invisible line of first, we're doing it for the health, because I started for health reasons too in 2018. And once I crossed that line of saying, oh, I am vegan, and I really had an epiphany and I had a visceral response to seeing meat at the grocery store, there was no going back. I mean, there's no question. I could get offered a boatload of money to eat a piece of meat and I would say no, because it is about the ethics. So I know VLynn has a bunch. VLynn is vegan. Yes, she is.
Yes, I am.
Did I just call you vegan? Yes, I did. You are a vegan. And VLynn, I know you've got a bunch of questions. So let's start with your questions.
Well, Heather, first of all, I'm just so excited that you're here. I love the business and the work that you do, the advocacy that you stand in, because I feel the same way. We are in the revolution. It's already begun. We are in it and we're giving more velocity to it by the virtue of what we're doing, what we're talking about, how we're supporting each other. And I just want our audience to know that if you're listening to this, you want to be a part of this revolution as well. And it doesn't require something radical, except maybe for yourself, but it does require your participation. And with that, I loved how you went from the dietary concerns that you had and the health impact that you recognized from just cutting out all meat and dairy. And then you really got to focusing on the animals, because I can relate. Same thing happened to me. And as I started really kind of ticking back in my life in 2016, I was actually introduced to the plant-based world. Changed a lot, but I was still eating meat, only because I didn't understand the animal side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And a year later, when I started learning more, when more people were able to share, I mean, I was I was totally 100% vegan, would not call myself vegan at all. At all. Just was not part of the mix here. And I used to say that my conception of vegans was the radical, throw red paint in your face and, shouting obscenities at you when you're wearing, a nice leather coat and your boots and, all of that. I just did not get it. You got it. Give us a couple of things that happened. I love the story about the animals, your pets. And I'm totally there too. It's still mind-boggling to me how my family with pets still eat meat.
Yeah.
But give us another aspect of this whole vegan shift that you're able to contribute to. Because there are a lot of people that don't have animals. They don't have pets. And they're still in this space of, it doesn't matter. Well, it does. So give us something else in that regard.
Yeah. So, once I went vegan and I started going to protests and that sort of thing, it opened my eyes to other things that were possible, like going to an animal sanctuary and feeding the animals. And how cool is that? Like, people think, oh, I'm going to go to the zoo to go see animals. Well, it's like an animal prison, basically. I mean, yeah, zoos may say that they are trying to like preserve certain animals, and but the okay, I'm just going to get on a high horse for a second. Elephants
Please
aren't
do.
made to like stand on concrete for hours. Like, that is just ridiculous. And zoos can, and I don't, there are places where animals have a lot of freedom to roam. Those are normally sanctuaries. And so I think supporting sanctuaries is so much more important than supporting zoos. Now, I realize that those poor animals are in zoos, and that's a whole other topic. But if you go to an animal sanctuary and you get to feed a goat or see the chickens walking around and they have such personalities, and seeing all these animals up front, you start to realize, like, wow, each one definitely is unique to the other. They definitely have personalities, just like human beings do. And just like a dog and a cat has personalities, so do these other animals. So I think being amongst animals is so important. People used to live on farms. We don't do that much anymore. We're city folks. We don't really see animals that much, but go someplace like that where you can interact with animals, because it is going to have a major impact on you. Another thing was, I read the China study. That book really solidified even more so my like, oh my God, please, I don't want any eggs or any kind of meat product. Like, I don't want it in my system at all. Like, even like, some people will say like, oh, well, I'm vegan, but I have a don't ask, don't tell, thing when they go traveling or whatever. Like, no. I don't want that stuff sneaking in at all, like ethical reasons and health reasons. So I'm very particular about that as well. So I always ask lots of questions. But going back to your thing about getting active and the whole radicalism and all of that. So part of going to protest, I found that, protests, they serve a purpose, but people are always angry and yelling at the crowd that going by, and they, like you said, throwing paint and all that kind of stuff. That is not going to change the world. I'm sorry. I mean, because what's happening is people just see it and they're like, oh, look at these losers, or they just judge people that are out there trying to make a point. So, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do activism like that. Go out there, but don't be so angry at everybody else. They don't know yet. So we want to educate the public, and they will come around, I think, if we put a little sugar on things, right? It's always better with some sugar. So I was part of the Radical Cheerleaders for Animal Rights in Portland, and it was already established, and I became one of the squad, and we would go to protest, and we had cheers that we did. We had pom-poms and routines, and we would be saying some really kind of gritty things about what was happening to animals, like electric, like rods being electrocution, and I don't know. Anyways, I don't even want to talk about it, but horrible things that were happening to animals. But we were putting it into cheers, and so we were making it more palatable for people to listen to this horrible stuff. So it's kind of like just putting a spin on it. Now, we did have a couple of people that were vegan that were offended by what we were doing. They're like, you're making a mockery of it. I'm like, well, okay, you think that, but we're actually getting people to stand here and listen to what we have to say rather than just walking by. So I thought it was a really great way to make a point and have people that are not vegan come listen to us, because they're like, hey, kids, come watch these people, and it's okay. I think it's okay to do a cheer, even it's a chant, but you're doing it in a way that looks like it's organized. So I don't know. You could do radical cheerleading for, saving the planet, any kind of issues that you want to do. It's not really around much anymore. I think it started in the 90s, but I think people should bring back radical cheerleading.
You just reminded me. Do you remember the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence?
I
Yeah,
love
I
them.
actually knew several of them when they first started. And that was within the LGBTQ community where they were bringing awareness to the whole AIDS situation because people were just, shutting their eyes and ears to it. And they actually were, it was, pretty radical what they were doing. But it reminds me of what you just said about the radical cheerleaders. And I actually live in a rural community. We have horses, we have chickens, we have dogs, and we have a cat, and they're all rescues. And I actually have had people say, how can you have chickens if you're vegan? It's like, no, we saved the chickens. We're not eating them. It's like, and these chickens are very spoiled. They actually come inside the garage to the back door and cluck when they're ready to eat. It's like, oh, it must be feed time. But when you were talking about the sanctuaries and the zoos, it reminds me of rodeos. Before I went vegan, I used to go to rodeos all the time. It was kind of like a ritual during the summer, 4th of July. And I remember when I really got that rodeos were not kind to animals. And I didn't know that. That was even before I went vegan, and was at a rodeo, and one animal had an injury and they had to put it down. And I thought, this is not right. We're getting entertained to watch these animals die. And the first time I told my family and friends that I wasn't going to go, they were going, oh, you're just being a little bit too, radical is basically what they were saying. I said, no, I can't go. I will not go. And it was almost an argument. And I just said, you know what? You can say whatever you want. I am not going. And that was pre-vegan. Now I know why it was really setting the tone for where I was going. And what I have to remember, and you kind of alluded to this, Heather, is that we get what we get when we get it. It's like I was 64 when I went vegan. And why should I expect somebody, that is 20 or 30 or 40 to get it right away? It takes time. It takes what it takes. And just because we learn something doesn't mean that everybody's going to learn it. So I think that having compassion around the way that we educate people, but I would love to hear how you've actually incorporated your veganism into your professional life, because I know that you work with vegans and you've got some amazing programs that you do. So let's talk a little bit about your professional life. And before we do, where can people find you actually?
Yeah. The easiest place is you can go on Instagram and find me at GetRadBiz. So I thought, hey, I'm going to keep that radicalism in there. So GetRadBiz on Instagram. And then you can just send me a DM. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn and all the places, but my last name is quite a mouthful. So that's just the easiest way to find me. And you can also find me at getradbiz.com.
Excellent. Thank you. So let's talk about your professional life.
Yeah. So when I started my business, just like anybody that starts a business, you sort of take work wherever you can. And I knew people in the comedy world. I knew people in the vegan world, like all the things that I've been part of, Toastmasters, all that kind of thing. And then I thought, I love working with vegans and helping them support their businesses, because vegans are like what, 1% of the population, something like that. And so many vegan businesses need help to stay afloat. And it's difficult because, if they want to stay true to what they're doing and not sell animal products, it can be very, very tough for them. So they need all the support that they can get. So I decided to put myself out there as the vegan CPA, and you can still find me on the internet as the vegan CPA. And I do work with non-vegans, but they have to have a business that is okay with my ethics. But I always find that working with non-vegans, you can always sneak in a few recipes and things, because I find that the best way to convert somebody, part of this revolution, is through food, because people love delicious food. And so I take on people that are non-vegans because I think like, haha, maybe I can convert them slowly, yes. But with the vegans that I work with, I give them a vegan discount because I want to make sure that they are, treated a little bit differently than my other clients. It's kind of like a, yes, you're rocking it kind of thing, so they get a discount. And, I have a a vegan that I work with that has a bed and breakfast up in Washington. That's a vegan bed and breakfast. That's really cool. So if you're ever in upstate Washington, you can go stay there. And I work with a person who started the vegan night markets. And so it's just really cool to be involved in people's businesses that are trying to make a difference and use their veganism as the backbone of their own business. So it's, and I offer tax and bookkeeping and profit advising, and I've done group programs and I do one-on-one coaching. So, if you are looking at your business and thinking like, why am I not making any money? Well, maybe I can help you with that kind of thing.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
What's the vegan night market before I turn it over to V-Lynn?
Oh, you don't know about that? So,
No.
Chelsea Davis is the one that started that. And it is, I think it is the biggest vegan market, I believe. I'm okay with saying that, but she puts it on when she can. I think I don't want to misspeak, but mainly it's in Portland, but I think she's trying to work on other cities as well.
Okay.
But she gets other, vegan vendors together and she puts on a big event, and there's food and there's
Wow.
there's all kinds of things. So I don't know when she's going to have the next one, but I'll for sure let you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love that. Love that. So, Heather, I love all the things that you're doing in your business, and you're right. Vegan businesses often need the help, and it's really great to have the vegan resources in order to get that help. With that being said, I want to kind of blow it up a little bit in that we've identified that we're moving in a multi-trillion-dollar market. And if vegans are only 1% of the actual market industry of the population, and there are sufficient number of vegan businesses, how do you see the future of vegan businesses? And what else can we do to help vegan businesses to see that there is so much potential right now to be tapped into?
Yeah, because I'm an accountant, I see how people treat their finances. And, just like a lot of people start a business based on their passion, and like a lot of people that are vegan start food trucks, and, that has straight correlation to food. But they may be great at cooking, but they don't know anything about keeping their finances. And I really, really think that if you are going to start a business, whether it's a vegan business or not, but vegans, we already have like one strike against us because we have a lower population that we can go after, or people that will take us seriously, or whatever it is, but you really need to get financial help in the beginning, at least in the beginning, and then ongoing, because I see so many vegan businesses go out of business. And when I've looked at their books, if they weren't my client, or, I take them on as a tax client, and now suddenly I'm seeing what's going on behind the scenes. I see all these mistakes that we could have stopped. And so if you are going to start a vegan business, please get financial help and make sure that you are set up for success, because I don't want you to fail. It's just the worst when you hear about another vegan business closing. Like, I follow vegan businesses on Facebook, and you say, oh no, not another one closing. And
well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about those mistakes, because we want people to get practical advice here. And I've had my business 30 years. V-Lynn's had her business a couple of decades, and we merged together a couple of years ago. And we work with businesses. That's what we do, is we help businesses to gain that visibility, to gain that market reach, and to increase their revenues. And it does shock me sometimes when I see how people run their business. But from the beginning, we became an S Corp, and, in my business. And so I would love to have you go through maybe the top 3 or 4 mistakes that people make and what they can do about that, because we want them to walk away with great advice.
Yeah. Well, part of it is that they aren't looking at their numbers. They're just living day to day, kind of flying by the seat of their pants.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do have a business like a food truck or something, you really need to examine what is going on that plate? How much is it costing you? How much time is involved? Where are you sourcing this stuff? I understand that you want to be organic and you want to, have big portions or whatever it is and you see, but I think a lot of them just look at what other people are charging, but they forget like the rent in these food cart pods are very, very high. Like, think about, maybe you should be doing something else, or maybe you could be doing catering or some other form of serving people your delicious food. Maybe that food cart, maybe it's going to need to be in a different location or something. But if you're not looking at any of your numbers, you have no idea any of this is happening. So I see food costs as one, pricing is another. You've really got to examine what's going into whatever it is that you're making, and whether it's food or, if you're making vegan jewelry, where are you sourcing these things from? You got to look to see what is your gross margin. Like, if you don't know what your profit margin is, then you could just be working yourself into a giant hole, because you have to make sure that you have high enough margins in what you're doing that you can still pay all of your other expenses and pay yourself. Like, we became entrepreneurs to pay ourselves. So there's a disconnect when they're not really looking at the big picture. So and being thinking ahead and being proactive about your decisions. So again, rather than just going by the seat of your pants, start to project, like, what do you think the future holds for you? Start to look at, okay, how many sales did I actually do this day? Like, is this something that I can keep up with? If I'm going to get a permit to be at this one location to sell, like, you're going to get a booth. Okay, how much do you have to sell to make that booth worthwhile? Okay, yes, it could be for marketing reasons. Okay, but then how are you going to track that you got those clients from that opportunity? Like, you've got to have some way of looking at where you're getting sales from, how, what marketing is working for you. Are you just like, there's all these components, there's lots of data, you just have to track the data, and the numbers don't lie. Like, there's a story behind what's happening in the numbers, but people are not looking at them. They'll just put all the receipts together or whatever, and then just at tax time they just like, okay, now I'm ready, and they haven't looked at anything. It's too late. You got to be looking at this stuff proactively. And even if you're a small business, because small businesses go out of business statistically, like, within the first 2 years, and then most don't make it past 5 years. So you gotta, if you went into business, you gotta treat it like a business. That's probably number one, right? You gotta treat it like a business. Like, have separate bank accounts. If you're commingling between your personal and your business, and you're buying stuff for the business on your personal, how do you know what's really going on?
I love hearing you say that. And as a matter of fact, today I'm going to meet with my personal banker, because we're going to go through some things with some of the changes that are going on. And I'm glad that V-Lynn and I are doing it right, because one of the first things we look at is when we have group programs we have digital products, we have individual clients. And when we work with, whether it be an individual client or a group program, we have a team of people. It's not just V-Lynn and I. We have an entire team of people, for video editing, for social media marketing, for web development. And if we tried to do all that work ourselves, sure, we could do it, but we wouldn't grow our business. And as we look at our numbers, we say, okay, when we bring on a private client, how much of that, whatever their investment is, how much of that needs to go to the team? How much gets split 50-50? All of that plays into it. So I love to hear that you make those recommendations. And early on, when I started my business, one of the first things I was told by a mentor was, treat your business like a business. Because if you don't, it's just like, treat your lawn like a lawn, take care of it, mow it, do what you need to do, and it'll become a beautiful lawn. And it's the same with your business. And to realize that there is the ebb and flow. So I'm so thrilled that you shared that, because I think that as people go into the vegan space, I just had a conversation with a young man that's going to try to do his website himself. And I said, you could do that, but first of all, you're picking the wrong platform. I need to tell you that, because he was asking for advice, so I could tell him he was wrong. And I said, you can actually, if you'd like to have a conversation with my business associate and I, we can share with you what it would cost for you to get a website up, how long it would take, and it'll be a lot quicker than you trying to figure it out yourself. Because oftentimes, and I'm sure you see this, Heather, and I'd love for you to talk to this, is oftentimes solopreneurs try to do everything themselves rather than outsourcing like accounting. I am not an accountant. I have a good accountant, and they make sure that everything's on the straight and narrow. They make sure that I never have to look over my shoulder. And oftentimes people try to do all the work themselves instead of outsourcing. So what can you advise on that? And then I'll turn it over to V-Lynn.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is looking at how much capacity can you do on your own? So we'll just use the food truck example. So if you have figured out that you have to sell like so many dishes in a day, do you have the capacity to produce those yourself? Like, do you need to hire somebody else to be in the truck? And then when you hire that person, are you making enough to cover their salary and that you actually have profit in the end for yourself? So you want to make sure that things make sense. So that though is a revenue driver where you're actually making money from this person. The other thing is hiring people in positions where you're giving them something to do where that's not revenue producing for yourself. And that frees up time so that you can produce revenue. So if it's them doing a website or your social media or whatever it is, those marketing tasks, let somebody else do that so that you can concentrate on selling, serving clients, and doing the things that are really going to impact your business. You want to have time to be able to strategize. And, if we're so busy trying to, do all the little nuances of our business, and I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I'll get bogged down and then I look at my day and I'm like, oh my God, I got like nothing done, quote unquote, because I was doing busy work all day and I need to work on like things that are going to make me money. So whenever you can, hire somebody to do those things. And if you feel like, oh, well, nobody knows how to do it like me. Okay. I hear that all the time. Record yourself doing these things. Start to log what it is that you're doing. Put systems in place in your business. And if you do things in a certain order, time yourself. I always time to see how much long a task takes. You can do it on video on your screen if you're using a computer. And then you give that to somebody else, and they can follow the steps and do it for you.
Love it.
So I hate that excuse that, oh, nobody can do it like me. Well, that's the problem is you've just never written down the steps. And it's just so easy just to do that once and then you can hand it over. So
perfect.
And then also, Kathleen, the other part of it is people say, okay, I can't afford help. Well, what I would recommend is start setting aside money for that. If you think, okay, I don't have the funds for that. Okay, I don't want you to be in a cash flow issue where like suddenly now you're paying for, because I've seen this so many times, people will hire VA. They don't know what they want the VA to do. They're just paying a VA to just do random things that aren't really moving the needle because people may have told them they have to do these things, right? And so think about what it is you want to hire this person for. What is the best use of your money? Make sure that it's well spent. Put those systems in place and start putting away a little bit of money so that you know that when you hire this person, you do have the funds to be able to pay them. So just always set aside some money for having help in your business. And set aside money for taxes.
Yeah, and I want V-Lynn to address that because that's something that we look at is we actually, when we bid a job, we figure in how much is it going to cost us to bring the team in to do those aspects. So V-Lynn, I'd love for you to address that, and then your next question for Heather.
It's really interesting that you bring this up because I agree. Most people don't think about as they're preparing to bid a job to bring those outside costs that they know are associated with that job to the bid, to the costing out of the bid. And it's key. And a lot of times we underestimate those prices too. So, I looked at many times taking those real numbers and then bringing them up by 10%, because you also want to give yourself the opportunity. If somebody does a good job, then maybe you have a little bucket of money set aside that you can give them a bonus or something like that. And it's important to incentivize and reward when it comes to team players. So I'd love to hear, I've got a question for you, but I'd love to hear a couple of ideas of yours as to what you have experienced or what you suggest that some people use to incentivize and reward their teams with.
Yeah, I love this. Actually, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day where, when people have more skin in the game, they are going to get behind you. So if we are the business owners, right? We own, but the people that we hire, they don't have the same passion for the business. They're like, it's a job, so for us to expect them to like be all in, but if we give them a piece of the action, now suddenly they feel like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to put in a little extra effort. So I think it is important to be able to like make sure that you're paying people something that's like, it feels good to them. And I want to avoid scope creep. This is like one of my high horses that I think scope creep comes in a lot, especially with creative services where we want to go above and beyond for a client, but sometimes it's more than what they even wanted, or there's a disconnect as far as like the deliverables or what they expect from us and all of that. And the same thing goes with who we hire. We want to be very clear on what we're hiring them for so that they don't go off on some weird tangent or, we don't want to have wasted dollars, right? So part of one of the things that I really believe in is if you have a client, so this is not like food services, this is more like we're talking about regular services, maybe marketing or videography or something like that. When you sell something to a client, you know exactly how much it's going to cost. Okay, if you bring on a videographer, rather than, okay, I'll pay you by the hour, and we don't know like how many hours they're going to be filming, how many hours they're going to be editing, all of that. We just give them a percentage of the job. And then they can work at their own speed and do whatever. But we know this is how much is allotted for this, because we don't want to like bid something and then be afterwards like, oh my God, the videographer took up all of our money. We had no idea that it was going to take us that long. So giving them a percentage of the job, I think, is always a really good, and then, yeah, you could give them something extra. I mean, God, everybody loves a little swag bag in the end. I mean, you can incentivize people with very little things because people love being appreciated. It doesn't take that much.
Yeah. Awesome. So my question is, we are social entrepreneurs as well as vegans, and we have a really clear idea, and we're really clear about how we support the community. How do you give back to the vegan community? I loved your vegan discount because you work with everyone and you give those vegans that vegan discount. I love that. How else do you give back to the vegan community and support related causes? You're such an activist.
Well, you know what? I used to be like on the front lines doing, activism. Truth be told, I right now I'm not doing that sort of thing. So I try to do it with whether it's donating money. So I love to donate my time. I just don't have the time right now. I know that's a dumb excuse, but so I donate money, but also my activism has really turned into serving people delicious food. So that is the number one way that I try to convert people. And you can I also kind of drop hints on podcasts, and when I go to places, I'm the vegan with the vegan meals and all of that. And then so people are hearing that, and then they get curious. They're like, what is that? And then they start to ask questions. And it's so interesting how like when people have like health issues and then their doctor says like, oh, you should be more plant-based. Suddenly now that like I get all the questions from them, and I'm there to help them out, never being judgmental. Like, I told you this years ago, you should have been doing, just being that person that's like, hey, I got these cookbooks. I'll send you some great recipes. So I think, we all have our way of contributing to the world with veganism. And I just think finding what makes them their stomach like really please is such a great way to do it. So, I mean, I've got people coming over to my house and they're like, "Oh my God, this is so delicious." And they're not vegan. So,
Hey,
yeah.
I'm only a short drive from you, so I think that I might just have to one of these days hop in the car and we'll come on up and visit. So, my next question actually pertains to you and your husband. In your private life, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? You go hiking? I know you cook meals, but what do you and your husband do to stay connected and to enjoy each other's company?
Oh, that's so nice. He loves hiking. You know what? I call myself an environmentalist, but truth be told, I get a little bored being out with the trees. I like city life. I like to walk around cities. So I love to travel. So we do a lot of traveling and we love to explore places. So, instead of just going to like the regular tourist attractions, we'll go into neighborhoods and see like where people really live and walk around. So we've gone to Mexico many times and you can get delicious vegan food in Mexico too. Um we will we've recently went on a trip and so that was really fun. We went on some cruises and cruises. This last year was the first time I ever been on a cruise and I had gone on a cruise and I thought, oh, I got to take my husband with me. And we really enjoyed it. It was really, really fun. And the cruise line was they accommodated us very, very well. So, but travel is probably number one thing. And then, just hanging out. I don't leave the house too much because of my work and COVID and all these things. It's like, he loves to go to concerts. Not so much for me, but um, hanging out and hanging out with my kitties.
All right. And how many
Aw.
kitties do you have?
Well, so I had 3. 2 died during the pandemic, but so now
Oh,
I just got the one. So
okay.
Aw.
yeah, but my other 2 kitties are here in spirit.
Yes,
Okay.
of
Okay.
course. Wow. Well, as an educator, because you are also an educator, what is one of the programs that you actually deliver that you feel gives people like some of the best of Heather and Heather's knowledge and expertise?
Oh, thank you. So yeah, I've had group programs, I've had memberships, I do workshops, and I think part of it is that I'm not judgmental at all. So I have a real open conversation with people. So with my workshops, I make sure that's very interactive and that people can ask me, anything. So it's not like I mean, I have a plan of what they walk away with a great workbook that I give them and everything, but it's a chance to like be open and honest. I don't record my workshops because I want people to feel like this is a safe space because talking about money it's very vulnerable and can be very difficult. So I want them to feel safe. So I think that is the biggest thing because there's a lot of money shame and I
Mm.
do talk about like our money stories and all of that. So that's one thing. The other is we have fun. So I have a lot of like games. I like to gamify things. I always have like fun, funky graphics that I make for things. So I put a lot of energy and fun into making financial stuff, which seems boring. I make it more fun. So, uh, people will say this is the most fun presentation I've ever heard on finances. So there you go.
Wonderful. Now, do
Nice.
you do in person or do you do virtual or both?
So I was doing mostly virtual, but now I've been doing in person as well. So that's been exciting. I did a workshop down in San Francisco and it was like 3-hour workshop and it was super,
Nice.
super fun. And it's so much fun to be with human beings in a place where you can hug and interact. And so we had tables where people could switch tables and work on different things. And yeah, so it's just a different dynamic. I mean, I love the virtual space as well because man, you can work with people all over the United States or all over the world. It's just
Absolutely.
it's just amazing. It's just really amazing. And I've been diving a lot into AI lately, so I've been doing workshops on AI and showing people things that I've learned and it's amazing like some people are just like like they know everything that's going on, but and then other people have no idea. They've never even tried anything. So I'm probably somewhere in between, and I'm so excited to show people what I've learned. So I've been doing those as well.
Excellent. Now I know that we touched on this a little bit, but I want to get your input where you see the vegan movement going and the vegan economics going.
Yeah, Kathleen, this is something that I find really sad, that I think there's a lot of negativity around veganism where people, rather than lifting us up, people want to just put us down. And I see a lot of negativity in the press lately where it's like, oh, look, another vegan business is closing, and I, I think that we're an easy target and people just kind of go after us because it's a headline or something. And then you'll see, a lot of the vegan things that are made, vegan foods, yes, they are processed. Okay. I'm not 100%, I guess I eat some processed food, but I really think that a whole plant-based diet is much better. But for people that are going to make a transition, sometimes that's the gateway into it. But there's been a lot of negativity around the processed foods in the vegan world. Now I know they're trying to make things healthier and all of that. So I just wish that there was more positive stuff in that. But at the same time, there are things like Netflix specials and stuff where people see, oh wow, having a vegan diet is actually a really good thing. So I love the fact that like Netflix recently had the special about the twins,
Right.
and talking about what they eat. And I suddenly saw people that I'd been telling them about veganism and the health benefits of veganism for years. And now they're posting things on social media saying like, I saw this thing and I think I'm going to try being vegan. And so, having things in the media like that are positive, I think will really have a great impact. I get newsletters on new vegan businesses starting up. I see that there's, a lot of things like around mushrooms. I think this is a really exciting area where like leather being made from mushrooms,
Right.
and all these different aspects that you can use mushrooms for. So there's a lot of like scientific stuff that's going on, that's exciting. I am not really jazzed about the idea of making meat, quote unquote, in the lab. Like that just sounds disgusting to me. And
Me too.
again, why would you want to eat that? Something, it just sounds like Frankenstein kind of thing. I don't know.
Worse.
It kind of is. It kind of
worse.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if meat is bad for us, why would we want something that was lab? Yeah, that's just
it's bad enough that we have so much synthetics that we're exposed to and sometimes even have to use. That why would we want somebody growing something in a laboratory that we want to then eat that fuels our body? No.
Right. But but one other positive thing though is that a lot of corporations though now are looking at the environmental impact of what they're doing. And I think that because it's this different, it's not saying veganism, it's saying environmentalism.
Right.
And we know that animals have, factory farming has a huge impact on the environment. So it's going to get there. It's just like shining a light from a different perspective. Like people can get behind environmentalism easier than veganism, but it's all going to, there's going to be this trickle down.
Right.
I mean, we have to do something. I mean, the rainforests are being ripped down.
Still.
I mean, that's like the lifeblood of our planet. And what for cattle, and it's like it's all for meat production. I mean, it's just really, really super sad. And then the whole thing, oh my God, with humane meat. Oh my God, there's nothing humane about killing an animal. I'm sorry.
Grass fed. Yeah. Well, you're eating the grass. I mean, that's the plants. So, I mean, they're eating the plants. Why can't we just go to the source? Right.
Yeah. And my husband and I, when we were in Mexico, we took this like a submarine tour, and there was no plant life, no fish. There was hardly anything to look at.
Wow.
And that made a huge impact on me because I was like, oh my God, we're in the middle of the ocean. We should be seeing all kinds of life. what have we done to this planet that we're not seeing hardly anything? It's like, oh, there's a
Right.
fish. Like, no, we're in the ocean. We should be seeing all kinds of activity. So
Yeah.
that is scary. Really,
Well,
really
you know,
scary.
And some of it is not reversible. Some of it is permanent damage, and I think people need to realize that. And one of the things you mentioned was AI, that you're digging deep into AI. I think it's really important for people to know what the truth is and what is AI generated, because with the negativity that's going on, it's not just the negativity towards the vegan community, it's the negativity within the vegan community. And for people to use critical thinking when they see something, is that really something somebody said, or was that AI generated to create that divide? Because it's the whole divide and conquer mentality that's going on in all different areas of our life. So I think the first step on the negativity and positivity is for us to support one another and realize we're all going at a pace that is appropriate for us, that somebody who has 50 years as a vegan is going to be in a very different space than somebody who is a year as a vegan. And it's just like in the recovery community. You know, I've been sober 40 years. Well, my thinking around drinking and drugs and all that is going to be very different than somebody who is a week sober. And I have to remember what it was like when I first started. And it's the same with being a vegan. So,
So
Vegan,
can I
I know
add
you
to
had
your
something.
point?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. You know, and to yours as well, Heather, where you talked about moving into this trend that we're in. We're going to experience the negativity, and a lot of it is going to be that which is initiated by the big dollars, the food and the meat and dairy industries in particular, and pharma. And what we have to recognize is the point that you brought up, Heather, was that people are going to get exposed to this and open their eyes to this from various sectors, from various perspectives. And we have to speak to each of them because they're all interconnected. And when we can and do, we allow ourselves the opportunity to be in this space of compassion towards all, and others to know the same thing. As far as compassion to all, coming in from the environmental side and seeing what happens with the animals that's creating the environmental problems, then leading to the food aspect for humans. And, you know, the entire way that people get into this space is something that we need to happen. And I just want to say, I'm so glad that we were able to spend this time with you today, because it's really important for us to have these kinds of conversations and expand on these kind of conversations. And we'd love for you to come back at another time in the future so that we can expand on this conversation.
I would love that. Yeah.
More about some of these really important topics. And please do kind of keep your eye open and see what's going on. We're doing it too. See what's going on in these other aspects and how it is that they're making a bigger impact from their points of insertion into the movement. And I have to put it out there too. If you know others who we might be able to be in a conversation like this with, please do let us know. That's how we expand our reach for the entire veganism and veganpreneur revolution.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Yes. Revolution.
Okay. And I want to remind people that you have been listening to the Veganpreneur Revolution podcast show. I'm one of the hosts, Kathleen Gage, here with V-Lynn Hawkins. And our guest today has been Heather Zeitzwolfe. And Heather is just amazing. I encourage you to go to her website, and it is going across the screen on the bottom, getradbiz.com. That's getradbiz.com. And I encourage you to visit our website at veganvisibilityproductions.com. That's veganvisibilityproductions.com. Thank you, Heather. This has been delightful. Thank you, V-Lynn, for all you do. And hey, thank you, Kathleen Gage, for all you do.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Have a great day. You've been listening to the Veganpreneur Revolution podcast show with V-Lynn Hawkins and Kathleen Gage. Be sure to leave a review, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel. And visit our website at veganvisibilityproductions.com. That's veganvisibilityproductions.com. Have a great day and live healthy.